Welcome to We Live It, the Live Ag Podcast, your source for livestock market insights, management strategies, and real conversations with those who don't just work in the cattle industry, they live it. Here are your hosts, deCordova and Casey Mabry.
Welcome to We Live It, Live Ag Podcast. Thank you guys for joining us out there. We just want to kind of go over what this podcast is going to be about. Casey and myself and our team have come up with this here a couple of months ago and thought it would be a great idea for us to sit down and record some of these and kind of talk about the industry stuff. Go over all the aspects of the industry, from the raising the cattle, the marketing the cattle, to the market strategies that y'all do there at Blue Reef, to selling the meat, to just all in between, everything in between from birth to when they go on the shelf. I mean, we just kind of want to cover all of it and kind of get different aspects of the industry involved in it. So we'll get started here and kind of tell you about what we want to do and tell you a little bit about ourselves. First of all, I'm deCordova. Been in the industry pretty much my whole life. Grew up in the industry. My dad had an order buying company. My great-grandpa owned the first sale barn there in Groesbeck, where I was born and raised. My grandfather, he managed one of the hitch yards for quite a while for the Hitch family. And then as we got older, grew up in the sale barns buying cattle, marketing cattle. Grew up in a video company, Spear Livestock. Grew up in that, selling cattle on video with my dad. And then I, in turn, went to work for them for quite a while. Then me and my brother and my dad bought a sale barn back in 2006. So we've kind of been in the industry for a long time. It's kind of how we was raised up, and that's hence the title of the program. We live it. I mean, so we live it on the market side. Our kids show cattle, and Casey's kids show hogs and cattle, and we kind of love the industry. We love the agricultural part of the industry, and we love the people in it. And that's kind of who we want to highlight as we go through here the next several sessions and next several podcasts. We want to get several different people in the industry on here with us. Casey, you want to kind of tell them a little bit about your background?
Yeah, I mean, first off, I think, Ty, I'm excited to be part of this deal with you. I think we've talked about this several times and just have the idea around doing this. And obviously, this is a big undertaking, and your team of people have put this thing together to do this. I mean, there's lots of misinformation out there. It's probably the deal. And I mean, there's some talking heads that you see in this industry that'll get out there and do some YouTube stuff, or maybe there's some structured, advertised different things that are out there as far as video kind of message things go. But where my head's at is just like you said. I mean, having some people in here that are from the industry, whether we're talking to bankers, talking about lending and how that impacts people, but all the different aspects of the guys that we're dealing with, the producers, us, the people that are buying cattle, selling cattle, feeding cattle, running cattle on grass, and dealing with that. And so, I mean, the people that are actually living in it. So, I'm excited about it. I think it's going to be awesome. My background is probably a lot different than what most people's in this industry were. I'm now over 40 years of age, and so I think I've become where people respect you. That's what. Whenever you're
is that
a kid,
where you have to get?
Yeah,
well,
it's 40.
I was there. I was like, maybe I got to get over 45.
I had a longtime guy that I used to buy cattle from that he called me last week, and he asked me if I was going to be at NCBA convention, and he wanted to sit down and talk to me. And I said, you know what? It's funny. I'm over 40, and so now you want to talk to me about the markets. And so before that, I was a kid, but. So my background, I grew up, my dad trained thoroughbred racehorses. So we would have lived in Louisiana until I was probably about 12 years old. And then we moved to Weatherford, Texas.
So you all moved to Weatherford for the racetrack there?
Trinity Meadows, yep.
I'll be dang. We raced horses. My great-grandfather raced horses there.
Isn't that crazy?
I did not know that.
Yeah,
That's the first I've heard of that.
Yeah,
we used to go up there every weekend and race horses.
So we moved there in about 1991. And so my dad was born and raised in Texas, and obviously if you're a proud Texan and you're living in the state of Louisiana, you want to get a better education for your kids. Yeah. And so he's like, hey, I want to get over to Texas. And so we moved there when I was about sixth grade. I got heavily involved in livestock projects in FFA, showing cattle and showing pigs. And so I got really, really involved, and I had a passion around the cattle industry and the meat industry, and really got excited about that. And it's interesting that those programs, what they do for kids. And I mean, when you say we live it, I mean, that is, it makes the hair stand up on the back of my neck, because now where we've gotten into this industry and the path that I've gone throughout this industry, it all started there. So my wife and I contribute a tremendous amount back, whether we're giving money back into, live or the sales, the county auctions, to give kids scholarship money to go to school, or judging teams and things like that. And so, anyway, so after I graduated high school, I went to college, studied animal science, meat science, went to my undergraduate there at Tech, and then went to graduate school at Tarleton and coached the judging team there. Cargill gave me a tremendous opportunity. There was a Randy Hines there at Tarleton. When I said I wanted to go to the meat industry and what job there was out there, he said the best job in the world is being a fat cattle buyer. And so I got that opportunity with Cargill, and I jumped right on it. And so I bought fed cattle in western Nebraska and eastern Wyoming for about 6 years, and I really learned a lot from people. And so the funny thing is I had never really been in a feed yard much, and so that's a good thing and a bad thing, I guess. And the other thing is I'm not necessarily scared to ask questions and learn. And so I dug deep in there with some of them guys and some mentors that I've had over the years that were, just really good guys in the cattle industry. Cargill gave me an opportunity to move to Wichita, and so I was overseeing all the formula cattle, all the committed supplies and things like that. So I got exposed to all the grids and all the different larger feeding operations out there, and then some box beef pricing. I spent a couple of years overseeing all the box beef pricing, and so came to Blue Reef about 7 years ago now, which that 7 years has gone by extremely fast. Blue Reef started out as a couple of guys that was helping farmers merchandise grain and help make decisions in markets and tough markets. And so we thought there'd be a pretty good opportunity to do that in the cattle space. And so we did that. Now it started out as a couple guys, and now we've got about 12 or 13. We've got an office in Nebraska. We've got an office in Weatherford, Texas. We've got one down in San Angelo, Texas, with different cattle advisors there. We've also got a couple grain advisors in the Midwest. So one's in Illinois, and then one's in Indiana. And so those guys focus on row crop farmers. And so we limit who we do business with. We have a smaller amount of larger customers, so we can dig in deep and get to know those guys' operations, whether we get to know them, their wives and their kids, but we want to know their operations in and out so we can help them make better decisions in the markets, because these things are tough.
Make it personal. It's got to be. That's what I love about the industry, is you can get so personal, and they're customers, then they become family. I mean, and that's pretty cool stuff.
No, yeah. And so, I mean, I think as you and I go through this journey over the next however long it lasts, hopefully forever, you know, until we get booted out of here, but I think the biggest thing we probably look forward to is bringing useful information to people, not just some words that are, spit through these microphones or canned, something that's real, something that gives us an opportunity for people to learn and get to kind of maybe self-reflect and think about their operations and make them better.
Yeah. Another thing we're going to do, we will start doing, and I guess we'll do one tomorrow, is the live recordings. We will do live podcasts from our auction sites. Every sale we have, the morning of, we'll have a couple of guests on, whether they're industry partners or buyers. Tomorrow we got a buyer or two coming on, and that's what that live deal is pretty fun. Like we did in Denver, you can kind of roll with it. So
yeah, the only unfortunate thing is everybody stands around the audience and kind of makes hand gestures and tries to get you cracked up a little bit. That's not hard to do, though, is it?
No, it ain't. Some of our future guests will be. We have John Sloan with Ad Texas going to come on here in a couple of weeks. We have Dennis Meskers, one of our reps, going to come on here in a couple of weeks too, and join us and talk about some stuff on what we see as a rep and what the rep should do and how they should conduct their business and stuff. So we've got a lot of good things coming. Tomorrow we got Jeff Peck's going to be on with Sen Hollow Trading, and he'll be on on the buyer side of the deal and talking about different things and what they look for. So that's just kind of, like you said, that's kind of the stuff we want to go over and go through is stuff like that. I mean, which I'm excited about.
Yeah, I'm really excited to talk to John Sloan with Ag Credit. I mean, with Farm Credit, because that's one that over the last couple of weeks, I mean, just tell you what the market, what it's done.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the market's exploding and it's all good and everything's great. But I mean, the backside of that thing is everybody's having to spend more money on cattle in the next turn that they're getting. And a lot of times, I mean, if the market's high, guys are hedged too. So they're having to manage margin calls. And most of the time, we don't have to worry about banking things. We don't have to worry about equity crunch and things like that and borrowing bases. I mean, things are just kind of normal when the market's quiet. When we start going either higher, much higher, or much lower, we got to start having conversations with our bankers ahead of time. And so it'll be good to dig deep in with John and understand that. Same thing with Dennis. I mean, that guy's got so much knowledge on, cattle classes in this industry, and it's just always fun to sit down and talk to him and go through some different stuff. So that'll be good as well.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean, those are going to be some good ones that we can really just learn from.
Yeah. Well, I look forward to all of it. I think this thing's going to be pretty neat to watch grow. I think it'll get bigger as we go, and we'll get more and more input. Like I said, just super excited about the family aspect of it, the industry that we're in, how we all kind of grew up together and didn't even know it. Was, heck, that right there at Trinity Meadows deal. I spent many a day there when I was a kid. When you said that, I was like, oh, you got to be kidding me.
Yeah, if you're 12 years old and spending all your time at the racetrack, particularly on the backside, you probably had a heck of an education.
Yeah, some things not to do.
Yeah.
Or maybe a lot.
Hey, what's funny is when I interviewed for Cargill, and this is back when I was like 23 or 4 years old coming out of school, Ken Bull was the head cattle buyer for Cargill then, or he was the VP of procurement. And I get in my interview, and he said, man, Casey, you don't really have a whole lot of experience in the cattle industry. Can you kind of tell me, what your experience is? And I said, as I've gone through life, I think through the backside of the racetrack, and not everybody can understand what I'm about to say, but there's all these different tiers of people at the backside of the racetrack or at the racetrack. You got the owners, and you got the trainers, you got the guys that are going there to gamble on racehorses. But through that, you can kind of segment all those people, and that right there has probably helped me to read people probably the most because all those different characters that you've got in that. So it's an interesting place, but also is the cattle industry. Whenever you go to these different places and you see it's a lot of similar deals where you have the guys that own the cattle, you got guys that run the operations, whether it's feed yard or ranches or whatever. This is a people business. This is a business that's always ever evolving. This is a business that you'll never have figured out. And so it's just going to be pretty exciting to kind of go through that stuff.
Yeah. They're telling me here to ask you about a market analysis, but I know your intake on that is, you want to go into the markets or do you want to?
Yeah, I can go through that right
just
now.
Kind of go through what it's looking like.
We're sitting here February the 12th. I had a guy come up to me 2 days ago and ask me, so the market put in a new high probably 10 days ago or so. And so the market, let's just kind of like walk through psychologically where everybody's at. So 1 year ago, 14 months ago, market's rallying. We're putting in new highs. Everybody's excited. On the October cattle on feed report, we get a bearish signal. The funds were very long cattle. And all of a sudden the market spilled out. So we went from, the April contract at that time, it hit 199.75. And I think everybody and their dog in 2023 was looking for $2 live cattle, 280 feeders. The market barely gets into that or doesn't get quite into that. No, a lot of people don't sell. Market fails. So we spend all of 2024 trying to rebound. The market in the fall of 2024 starts rallying up and gets really close to where we were, and everybody starts selling the market. And so hedging the market, hedging cattle, selling feeder cattle, selling fed cattle. And then the market continues to rally and it goes way above most people's expectations. And whenever you get a market that parabolically moves higher than that, you have to ask yourself why. And so in my mind, the market pops higher and goes higher than that, than what your expectations were. And there's two ways to do it, either buying pressure or lack of selling. Lack of selling is probably what drove it higher in my mind. Because if you're a guy that sold cattle, Ty, and you sold cattle, a week before, and then the market goes higher, what do you think? Man, I shouldn't have sold those. Mm-hmm. So then you're not selling the next set of cattle. So then it creates this environment where the market continues to push higher. I think we're in that. I think the market, and then psychologically, we've taken a little bit of a breather here. So on fed cattle, we've broken about 10 or 12 bucks off the highs. And on feeder cattle, we probably broke about $10 or $15 off the highs. And most people, now that we've gotten back to the levels that we didn't think we would exceed, they're sitting here going, is this thing going to bounce back, or when's it going to bounce back? And so I don't know. And I always tell all my customers, and I tell everybody I get to, I don't try to necessarily predict the market. I just try to take the variables that we've got at play and kind of understand them. So here's what we've got today. So February the 12th, we just finished the NCBA convention. I was there for a short period of time, did a little taping with U.S. Farm Report, sitting up there with Dr. Darrell Peel and Don Close, and those are two analysts that I respect very greatly. Everybody is very, very bullish from a supply standpoint. I think we might have gotten everybody on one side of the boat here for a minute because everybody is staring at supplies. The demand side of the situation that's occurring today is we took boxed beef up to 230 from a cutout standpoint, and we did it very rapidly, and it stayed up there for a while. And a lot of these retailers are having to digest those prices, and then they're passing that on to the consumer. If you walk through your local Walmart, you'll see a lot of yellow tags and a lot of markdowns on those products because the consumer's backing off. So you got to ask yourself, is it because they're getting higher prices, or are they getting crunched from other things? And so demand is kind of softened to some degree. I don't know if it's a seasonal thing. I mean, we're sitting here in February. It's very seasonal to have demand push lower. But we're seeing the kills be cut. So we see a 100,000 kill on Monday when we normally kill 125,000. We've seen a lighter kill each and every day this week. And so packers are pulling back. They're running 36 hours. And normally when they pull back, you should see an adjustment on cutout prices. It should go higher. We've seen the cutout actually go down. And so that's a little bit of a concern. So not saying that that's going to happen long term. It's also February again, like I said, and you always have a softening in here. So right before you have spring grilling kickoff. So I feel good about the market. I'll tell you that. I feel really, really good about the market. We have had a breather here. On the fund side of things, that's one thing that we have to watch. Specifically, whenever you're looking at the managed money side of things, so the commitment of traders. And so the COT comes out every Friday. It's called the commitment of traders. It comes out and says, here's the positions that are in the futures market, and here's who has them. And it breaks it down. It says commercial, which a commercial is, and I'll just get a little educational here for a second. Yeah. A commercial in any commodity is the producer. So whether that is the person that's buying that physical commodity, in our instance, it'd be the packer, or the person that's selling the commodity, so the producer. So whenever you have a hedge account or any account, a brokerage account, you are marked as a producer or you're marked as a commercial or non-commercial. And so whenever you put those positions on, then the COT can come out and the CFTC comes out and says, here's all the positions there. And so today in live cattle, I think there's over 300,000 total open interest. That's the total amount of contracts that are on the books. And then they break those down and they say, this is the commercial, the non-commercial. We watch that because that's the one place. So in the physical side of things, our buyers and sellers are producers, right? So you have a guy that goes out and buys some grass cattle. At some point, he has to buy the lightweight calf. He has to go out and sell that thing at some point, whether he puts it on feed and sells it as a fat steer or he sells it as a calf. You got a feed yard that goes out and buys, whether they're buying a 4-weight dairy cross calf or they're buying a 7-weight, they're a buyer. And at some point, they got to be a seller in the fat market, right? That's the commercial side of it. We don't have anybody else in our market in the physical side of things besides true commercials. In the futures market, you got commercials, same people, and you got non-commercials. The non-commercials are the funds, okay? And so you got all kinds of different funds. You got funds that are managed money, so those guys that are going out there and buying commodities based off inflationary beliefs. You got some of those guys that are speculative managed money, so they might be looking at different fundamental factors and trying to just bet on the cattle market or sell it or whatever. They can go long or short. You got index funds, and so there's a whole myriad of different things that drive that. You have to remember, in a room in the CFTC or in the commodity market, in every other commodity like corn, your natural long is a corn originator. So a guy's buying corn, whether that's General Mills buying corn to produce, whatever their end products are. That's Tyson Foods buying corn to supply chicken as a hedge against rising prices of corn, or feed yards going out and buying corn to offset cost of gains. And the cattle side of things, we don't necessarily have a natural long. There's nobody in our space outside of that carries lots of long risk that they need to go buy cattle futures to offset that. A little bit of meat trade that's sold way out front, but we don't have a true natural long in cattle. So we depend on the funds to be our natural long. And whenever the funds are buying the market, it's a really, really good thing because the market's going higher and everybody's excited. When the funds get long and they already have all these positions on, we have to look for them to expose or to leave. So when they leave, that's the same guy that bought the market has to sell the market. And so when we have normalcy, the funds are 50 to 60,000 contracts, it's not a huge impact. Whenever everybody gets on one side of the boat, if you will, the funds get 150,000 long. They traditionally don't get any longer than that or have many more positions on than that. We know they have to exit. And so will they exit today? Will they exit 6 months from now? Will they exit, a year from now? Who knows? But again, it's little situations that, make them funds exit, whether it's a bearish cattle on feed report like we had last year that puked the market out. And that's whenever a cattle feeder starts saying things like, man, this market's broken or the futures market doesn't work or whatever. When it's going higher, we get excited about it. When it's going lower, we sit there and blame people. So anyway, that was a long explanation on what's going on in the market. The funds are the longest they've been ever. And that's the thing that I want to make sure that we understand. Right. And that's, so like I said, February the 12th, we've got an extremely long fund position in both feeder cattle and live cattle. It's above extremes. If you talk about from a standard deviation standpoint, off of a mean, we're probably 2 or 3 standard deviations above their average position. That's my fear in the market today. So if there's any one thing to be bearish about, it's that. Everything else is to be bullish about. Supply story. I mean, we haven't started to expand the cow herd. All those different, very, very long-term reasons to be bullish. So my market bias today is I'm running with a keen sense of paranoia. Yeah. So I'm excited about the market. I'm bullish the market, but I'm also going to protect that with different, positions. And that'd be, whether it's options or LRP.
Yeah. Cool. Well, I guess we'll kind of talk a little bit about our next episode. We brought up Dennis earlier. He's going to be on the next episode of the podcast, and then we have some live ones coming up here pretty soon too. So we want to thank everybody for joining us. Appreciate you guys for trusting us and listening to us. We're going to try to make this as educational and as fun as we can, where we're not just a bunch of guys sitting up here mumbling about stuff that we don't know what we're talking about. So. Like I said, we're going to bring in some pretty interesting people here in the next several months to join us and to go over some things within the industry, and we look forward to that. If you're out there and you want to join and you want to be a part of it, we ask you to go to live-ag.com and reach out to our marketing team, and we would love to have you on. If you want to join in a sponsorship role or have some kind of industry partnership, we would ask you to go to live-ag.com and also send in a request or reach out to the marketing team, Katie and the gals there that'll tend to all that for us. So just reach out to one of us and we'll get you aboard, and we'd love to have you. So thanks for joining us, and once again, remember, we live it. Live Ag.